Hi, welcome to Educate Focus. My name is Kellyanne Rodriguez. Today we are going to look at June 2012, question 1, part A, because this question looks at trial balance. It's 13 marks. And let's say if you have 1.5 minute answer per mark, right? Let's an average of 1.5 minutes, given that you have reading time within this per mark. Then you have about 20 minutes to answer this question with 13 marks. So time is of importance in the exam. You want to leave time for any correction, for review, and whatnot. So one of the main thing I tell students is to read the requirements first. It is very important that you read the requirements first. Because when you read the requirements, once again, when you're going through the question, you will already know what is expected of you, right? So you know how to draft your answers. You will already know what to pull out from the question. You know what's going on within the structure of the question. So let's look at this question. Requirements. Prepare the corrected trial balance. So note what they're asking you to do. Prepare the corrected trial balance for heavy metal, showing clearly the corrected amount for capital. So what they ask you to show the corrected amount for capital, right? An accounting student prepared the following trial balance for heavy metal enterprises for the year ending 31st of December 2011 and inserted the amount of 51,200 for capital. So note that they say the student inserted the amount. That means to say, in order to get this balance here to be equal to this balance there, this capital was just the balancing figure. So the student balanced it off by balancing off using the capital figure as a balancing figure, right? So now all you have to do is look at each account that is given to you and decide which one has to be debited, which one has to be credited, and put it in the correct column, and then get the corrected amount for capital. So a quick and easy way of doing this and doing it efficiently is to first and foremost head up your trial balance. So we have heavy metal enterprise or enterprises, because on top stated enterprises, the requirement stated enterprise. So either or will work. Heavy metal enterprises. And what we do in a corrected trial balance. For what period? As at the 31st of December 2011. Now, now the draft of a trial balance is already here for you, right? So you know that you have to put your debit, you have to put your credit, and you have to put your dollar sign, right? So next, these are the accounts that you have to correct. So if I was you and I sit in the exam, I know I press for time, I want to be able to list this down, because this doesn't requires me thinking about where the account going or have spend time think. All I need to do is have my pen and paper functioning, and I could all write these accounts in the rows coming down. So bank overdraft, cash on hand, and Excel allows me to just enter and with the functions, so it fills all the columns, right? Although he has capital, but it's not. So bank, let me just double check. Bank overdraft, cash in hand, provision for bad debts, right? Bad debts, accounts receivable, accounts payable. Here we have, and you see how good it is to double check even when you're in work, because Excel could make errors. Long-term loan. Carriage inwards, oh my goodness. Carriage inwards, carriage outwards, commissions received, rent paid, equipment at cost, accumulated depreciation of equipment. So I want to have the same thing as the examiner had, right? Motor vehicle at cost. And here is accumulated depreciation. And in brackets for motor vehicle. Then we have salaries, inventories, purchases, sales, miscellaneous expenses, return outwards, return inwards, and we have capital. So everything is listed there. So the next step, after you write this down in a list in your exam paper, all you have to know now is to ask yourself which amount, because In this requirement, you will not ask, and where is my pen? You will not ask anything else. You will not ask to correct any errors. You will not ask to, because you know the trial balance could have errors and they could give you a list of errors to correct. All they ask you is to prepare the corrected trial balance. So this is already given, and all you have to do is to state where this amount goes, if it's whether in the debit or credit side, and get the corrected amount for capital. So looking at this question, and I'll move this around a little, right? Looking at this question, bank overdraft. You know what a bank overdraft is? Is when you overdrawn in the account. So that means it's not an asset, it's a liability. If bank overdraft is a liability, 26,500 is on the wrong column. It's supposed to be on the credit side. So now we have 26,500 has to be on the credit side. And here I'll fix my dollars and cents, right? Cash in hand. Cash in hand is an asset. And if cash in hand is an asset, it's supposed to be, and let me put cash on hand. Cash on hand is an asset. It's supposed to be on the debit side. So it is on the correct side. So all you have to do is replace the value on the debit side. Provision for bad debts. Provision for bad debts, 8,200. Now, provision for bad debts is on the correct side. This is on the correct side here. And the reason being, when you make a provision, it is still to be deducted from the accounts receivable account. So if it still has to be deducted from the accounts receivable account, it has to be on the opposite side of your asset. So accounts receivable is supposed to be an asset and supposed to be on the debit side. So we'll come to that soon enough. So if the provision has to be deducted from the receivables, that means to say it has to be on the opposite side. So when it's stated in the balance sheet, it will be a minus from the actual value. So it's just as in a ledger account, right? So provision for bad debts is on the credit side, 8,200. Your bad debts, however, is already written off from your account. And if it's already written off from your accounts receivable, right, and it's supposed to be like an expense or cost towards your profit, it reduces your profit. And if it's whatever reduces your profit, like expenses and cost of operations and whatnot, it is always a debit balance in your accounts. So you should know bad debts is a debit balance. So it is in the wrong side. Accounts receivable, as discussed, that is an asset. An asset should be on your debit side. Accounts payable is a liability, and that should be on your credit side. Long-term loans, that is 75,000. Liability, credit side. Carriage inwards. Well, let's look at both carriage inwards and carriage outwards. What is carriage inwards and carriage outwards? Both carriage inwards and carriage outwards are transport costs. So both of them are transport costs. And since it's both is cost towards the company, that means both of them reduces your profit. And both of them means like an additional expense towards the company. And as you know, an expense is a debit in your trial balance. So both carriage inwards and carriage outwards are debit values in your trial balance. Commissions received. Now, commission received is like almost as an income, like a revenue gain, like an increase in your revenue value in your trading profit and loss account. So commissions would be represented almost the same way as sales is represented. And sales is a credit value in your trial balance, not so? So commission received would be a credit balance in your trial balance. And pay attention to some things like this, because other than commission received, you might see something like rent receive, because they will leasehold, they lease their property. So this is a very valuable thing, account to pay attention to. Also, pay attention to carriage inward and carriage outwards, because both accounts are transport costs. And one may think that one has to be debited and one has to be credited, but both accounts are transport costs, right? Rent paid. So now you see how they put rent paid close to commission received. They want you to believe and to think rent paid is supposed to be the same, represented the same way as commission. But rent paid here is an expense. So it's treated differently. And rent paid is $12,000. Now, equipment at cost. Your equipment is a non-current asset, and a non-current asset is debited. accumulated depreciation for your equipment. Now, if you have your same way as we treated the accounts receivable is a debit account, and because we make a provision for the bad debts, this still has to be minus from the accounts receivable. So that is the reason why the provision has to be in credit and the accounts receivable has to be in a debit, because this will eventually has to be minus from here in your balance sheet. So it's the same thing as equipment at cost, and I'm just showing you how to logically think about it. It have the accounting concepts that apply here, right? But accounting rule to be applied here. However, I'm showing you how to look at it when you're looking at the trial balance, so you'll see easily if you don't have to stop and think and wonder. So equipment at cost, this is an asset. So 90,000 is at cost, but it depreciated over the period of its lifespan. So accumulated depreciation is like provisions for depreciation you make. Provision for the asset, the reducing value of the asset. So just as you make provision here and it is credited, so that it will eventually minus from the accounts receivable account. You know in your balance sheet that the depreciation is also minus from your equipment cost. So 3,500. Well, motor vehicle and the accumulated depreciation for motor vehicle, we treat it the same way. So 68,000. And the accumulated depreciation for motor vehicle is 15,400. Salaries. Salaries is an expense, and all expenses are debit entry. Inventories. Inventories is an asset. And here they just state inventory. So here assume that this inventory is stated in your trial balance. So 16,800. Purchases. Now, if sales is a credit, purchases will be where? On the debit. It will be the opposite side. So if you're stopping to wonder, you just ask yourself, is my sales supposed to be credited? So therefore my purchases need to be debited. So it's the reverse of what they have here. So 74,600, and purchases is a cost which reduces the revenue value. 125 is the cost of goods sold. Miscellaneous expenses. Once again, an expense is a debit entry. Return inwards and return onwards. Now, return inwards and return outwards, they are not to be treated as commissions, as carriage inwards and carriage outward as transport costs. Return outwards and return inwards affect your purchases and your sales separately. So return outwards reduces what? It reduces your purchase cost. And return inwards reduces the revenue value. So if sales is on your credit side, then what reducing the sales need to be on the debit side. Which one reducing your sales? Return inwards. So return inwards will have to be on your debit side, right? And if purchases supposed to be on your debit side, right? Then return outwards, reducing your purchases, has to be on the credit side. So just in case you're wondering and you're doubting yourself in the exam, the opposite will have to go the same way. Sales is here. Return inwards will have to be on this side, showing the reducing the value of your sales. Because when goods are returned inwards, the value of your sales are now going to reduce. And return outwards, the value of your purchases, which is 74,600, will now be reduced. Which is how much? 3,600. So now you just have to find your corrected capital. And how do you do that? You add your debit side, total your debit side, your total your credit side. Now capital, as you know, is a credit entry. So therefore you're looking for a difference on your credit side. Looking at the two balances here, automatically you can see that the credit side is less than the debit side. So therefore the difference is your capital. The student had 51,200 as the capital, but when we do our minus, let us see how much is the difference. If we have 406,000 minus 344,600, the difference, your capital, is actually 61,400. And this is to close your question on, I don't know where to put this, but sorry about that. We just put it this way, right? And this is to close your question on June 2012, question 1, part A. This is not part B of the question as yet. So this is to close this question. This is 13 marks. And we should have covered this within 20 or 22 minutes because you want to have a little time, space to breathe for review and for if you want to look back at your question, right? So I already posted another question on my YouTube page on ledgers and trial balance. Have a look at that one, because that one actually look at double entry, balance in the accounts, and then a trial balance, a very small trial balance. This one look at a more detailed trial balance. And then we will go on into controls accounts. So thank you for joining me. Feel free to ask any question, and also feel free to share with others to help others with being successful in their exam. So all the best. Have a good one. Thank you for joining me. Bye.